This is the art of startup war. And my name is Brian McMahon, your host and sensei. Here is what we know. 98% of startups will fail every single day, and mostly due to reasons outside your control. The Expert Dojo Startup Accelerator, we look to even up the playing field by sitting down with the greatest minds in startup investment right here in our studio in Silicon Beach, where we look to shine a light on your path to success. Now, our guests each week have invested millions of dollars into startups and are the most respected investors in the world. Now, they share all they know with you, the listener. So join us on Tuesday mornings at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, starting off your week winning the war against startup failure.
Okay, we're back. It is Tuesday morning, and this is a very, very special podcast that we're doing today. Not just because it's the beginning of a brand new season, but also because it's the beginning of a brand new direction. So every single podcast we have done up until this date has been an investor, an angel, a venture capitalist, a third-party introductory source, an angel group, a third-party investor or funder, or any of the above. And those people have been saying from their perspective what it's like to give investment to early stage startups. And I have been questioning during this time, why is it I never ever get emotionally involved in the conversation? And a bunch of them are my buddies or my friends, and they're nice people, and we have drinks and we talk about startups and we get real facts. And then I realized that the biggest problem that we have here is we're getting all of our investment advice from investors rather than startups who've actually gone through the entire process. So this season is going to be really special, and I think you're going to find that even more valuable to you than the individual advice you are getting from the investors, because you are going to hear from who I believe are some of the greatest startup founders in the world who have gone through the process, whose only reason for being on the podcast is that they can help you make your journey a little bit easier, right? Now, I want to start with someone that I believe, and not one of the greatest female founders in the world, because I'd be told, well, there's no need to distinguish. But I do believe there's a difference going through the early stage process if you're a female founder or if you're a male founder. This person would be one of the best entrepreneurs in the world for me, whether she was female or male. But I think you're going to get a great perspective today on some of the attributes that she has, but I genuinely believe that everybody needs to be an entrepreneur, which is A, to have a phenomenal idea whose time has come, B, to have the most unbelievable amount of tenacity than you can possibly imagine, to go through adversity that you can't even believe and then break through the other side, C, to be able to convince some of the top investors in the world that her idea is not just right, but her terms are even better for them to actually comply with, and D, just to be everything that embodies a great entrepreneur. So, Miss Chelsie Lee, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Excited to be here.
And we've been through most of this together, right?
Yeah, we have. It feels like we've been to the war and back.
It's been a crazy journey. And I know you started this journey yourself way before the dojo and went out knowing that you needed to raise a lot of money with an idea that it was fully developed, but it hadn't been fully built, so you were still at concept stage. And you went through a lot of investors to find your prince, right?
Yes, definitely good at kissing frogs.
I want to really focus today, because I know you're going to have some amazing tips on what entrepreneurs should do. And I promise you, anybody listening to this show, you're going to get more out of this today than I would say any other show we've done prior to this, as far as real, what the heck should you do to make your journey easier? But can we just start on how hard it's been, first of all? Because now you're in this phenomenal position, you've got a round, your round is closed, and a little bit extra, you've got unbelievable entrepreneurs on your side, which we're going to come back to later. But the journey to this, I don't just want to say how hard is it, because that doesn't even come close. But can you just share a little bit about what you've gone through from start to finish to get to where you are?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting, and the new entrepreneurs that I meet or investors that I meet, they think that it's been so easy because of our oversubscribed round and the fact that we have too much demand from customers than we can currently handle. But the journey to get here was the most challenging experience of my entire life, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
As an entrepreneur, I not only get you, but obviously I've been through this before. But for people who are starting on the journey, what is it they have to prepare for? So 9 months ago, right? You started out. Have I got the date right? Is it 9 months?
It was about a year. It was about a year ago when we originally started working with big venture capital firms, I would say. One of the best things that we did was around the time that I met you, when we really slowed things down for 2 weeks and put all of our baseline together and working on defining our deck and our message and our business plan and stopping everything else and really
Why did you do that?
It was really setting the foundation. And I think before we had done that, we piecemealed things together as investors asked for it, but then it didn't really flow and there was mixed messages in different places. And so I would say that's actually the first thing that I would do, is to stop and really set and lay the bricks because it'll make things that much easier moving forward.
Because it's so hard, because there's no real guidebook for this, right? There's nothing that says, okay, and on page 3, this is what you'll do. And then on page 4, they'll say this, and you should reply with that. It's more, we come up with our idea, we realize that it's something the world needs, we realize the timing is right, and then we just go hell for leather after every investor we can possibly find.
I think another thing in the beginning that's really, really hard is that investors, you'll meet with one, they tell you to go north, the other one tells you to go south, the other one tells you to go east, the other one tells you to go west. And I remember calling Ben, my co-founder, after the first VC meeting that I had. And I've been really fortunate previously in my career where I had a bunch of data to back things up, and I just didn't really lose that often.
Yeah.
So I called Ben after my first VC meeting and said, they said no. And his
and of course, Ben not only is an experienced exited entrepreneur from before, but has his own accelerator. So no is what he expects a lot.
Yeah.
Way before yes.
Yeah. And I just remember calling him I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. I said, Ben, they said no. And he said, okay, who do you have this afternoon? I said, I don't think you understand. They said no. And I was just starstruck by it. And that same day, someone told me for our business that we only needed to go after the whales in the morning. Otherwise, we were going to fail and we were going to die in a day. And then that afternoon, a different investor said, you only have to go for the tiny, tiny minnows.
And they're talking about your customer base, the people that are going to grow your business, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I think that in the beginning, you get tied up with what an investor tells you, either go for the whales or go for the minnows. You listen to one, start going down one path, and you listen to the other one, go down a completely different path. But it's probably not true to your business, and it's hard not to listen, especially early on. So I would say stay to your gut and your path because you know your business better than they do. And otherwise, you're just going to go running around on these wild goose chases for nothing.
And it's a really good point. And a lot of the investors, although the advice is well-intentioned, it's not their space, right? So, and they want to feel like they've contributed in some way. And contributing in some way is to say, you should try a subscription model. You should definitely build a marketplace. You should make sure that all of your customers pay a set fee per annum. And all of it is really not based on any type of meaningful market research. You're the only one who's done that. So I think that's interesting. So when you took that first 3 months, how many investors had you seen during that period?
The first 3 months, probably 50, 60.
Yeah. And I know. And which is, on one side of it, actually on both sides, it's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Because you must have learned so much during those first 3, even though it's hard. Like, who wants to see 50 investors and have to go through the same thing every time, knowing the answers that half of them are going to come back with because you're still developing everything you have. But looking back, you must have got a bunch of information from that, which was useful.
Yeah, a lot. And I think it helped me throughout the process moving forward. It taught me to listen to what they're saying. The amount of times that I asked, so what kinds of things do you like to invest in? Or when was the last investment that you made? Or give me an example of one of your favorite investments. Or what was the youngest company you've invested in? And in the beginning, I think I was just so excited to vomit my idea on them that I didn't really listen.
Yeah.
And I would say that's another huge, huge learning, especially in the beginning. If someone has only invested in socks their entire life and you're selling a cure to cancer, well, stop and listen first because you're going to learn a lot more.
And how did your pitch change from before? So obviously the company is Shipsi, a phenomenal company. Fast forward 3 years in the future, one of the most important logistical payment mechanisms that any brand will have for giving easy and simple distribution of their particular product within 1 hour anywhere it goes to. But tell me, what was the pitch before, and then how did it change so much towards the end that gave you such phenomenal success?
You have to dumb it down.
So it was too complicated at the start, right?
Too complicated, and every entrepreneur knows their business so well, but a great mentor of mine used to tell me, pretend like you're telling your gram. Or pretend like you're telling my mom or explaining it.
Yeah.
So I actually did that. And when I said our API calculates, da-da-da-da-da, no one knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So throughout the process, you learn to dumb it down. And I called a few friends and asked them if it made sense. And everyone said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what's the actual problem without putting a bunch of jargon or acronyms in it? I don't understand.
And what did that dumbed down version? Give me the dumbed down version now.
The version that we use now is we partner with brands and retailers to provide their end consumers an option at checkout to receive merchandise in an hour or less.
Simple, right? And in many cases, it's less expensive to receive it in an hour or less than it is to receive it in 24 hours as they would have got it through the payment system, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I remember when I first met you and you told me your value proposition, I thought, how is it possible in now universe that there is no now commerce? Like there's no ability. I want to get a pair of shoes. I want them delivered within the next hour. There's no ability for me to be able to do that. It's crazy, right? And this must have been a real frustration for you because you must have known, not only do I have an idea, not only do I have a killer idea, not only do I have brands who are going to market and sell my idea, so I don't even really need to spend money on advertising. I just need to have a half-decent sales team to manage the customer service of the brands. But if I don't move on this quickly, somebody's going to come in and they're going to take it from under us because the timing is that perfect for it. That must have been driving you crazy.
And that's why it's hard when you're rejected so many times again and again and again, especially from people that almost fool you. It's like they earn your trust a lot of times, or an investor. Like I had someone ask, they didn't live in LA, it was on the East Coast, and I thought for sure they were going to invest in us. I had met them once and they invited me to stay at their house, and it was part of a syndicate kind of.
Yeah.
And stayed at their house, trusted them, and it went amazing, or so I thought. But they basically wanted all their friends to jump in the pool before they jumped in the pool. But it got to the point that I had already been rejected from over 100 investors. I met with them, stayed at her house, and then she asked me to pay for the cleaning service while I'm staying at this penthouse. And it just shows you that the people that actually believe in you, they're so genuine. Like my investors now, I'm so fortunate that none of the other ones worked out.
Right.
Because now looking back on it, I would never want to work with anyone else.
Do you think many of the investors you saw had no intention of ever investing in a business at your stage and they just enjoyed the game? And I don't want to generalize, but it does seem like a recurring topic sometimes, because it's very trendy to meet with a lot of early stage startups to support women entrepreneurs, to support early stage entrepreneurs. But then when we look at the track record of some of those investors, it doesn't quite speak the same truth.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I had an email template at one time that it would auto send if I got something. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was, if you were actually interested in an investment in the company or interested in learning more about the company, I'm happy to schedule some time to meet, but I have no time for tomfoolery. And I think I created that after I had been approached by a traditional looking VC male at an event. And he said, our number one priority this year is female founded and run companies. I said, great. Who have you invested in this year?
How do I know the answer already?
And he got incredibly uncomfortable. And I said, okay, What was your number one priority last year? Oh, investing in female-founded companies. How many did you invest in last year?
Yeah.
And silence. And
Yeah.
people get, and I think that for me, that makes some people uncomfortable because I call them out on their BS right away.
Yeah.
But I would rather know than waste either of our time. And it's don't lead with that as your line. And after I felt like I got tricked a few times like that, in instances like that, I decided to apply a rule that I use with my personal life to my professional life.
Yeah.
In an effort to save some time, which is always commit to a drink, never commit to dinner.
Yeah, and that's great advice because we can get so sucked into the moment, especially if we meet someone and we think, oh my God, this is the one, this is the perfect investor. They're going to give us all the money. And then we have a meal and then we have another meal and then we go out to their house and we feel like we need to be nice to their wife or their kids or their husband or whoever it is. And then you realize 3 weeks later that there was never any intention, like any intention.
Nothing.
It's almost a surprise when we're upset that the investment hasn't come through.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just scary. Do you also think as a woman entrepreneur, and I don't want to make it so that as a woman entrepreneur it's like it's a million times harder, but I imagine it is harder, right, than as a male entrepreneur. Just on a general level, what you have to go through with investors?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know any different. And I think that my directness with a lot of investors probably rubbed them the wrong way when I asked how many women-founded companies, or I'm sorry, I'm traveling, but I can do a 15-minute call instead of meeting you in person for a drink. And when they didn't respond to that, or when they said, no, actually, this isn't our vertical, or this isn't this.
Sure.
And I've even asked some VCs, okay, so you want to schedule a meeting? Great. I looked at your portfolio and you generally invest in A and B and in the healthcare space. I'm interested in knowing why you think that Shipsi is a good fit for your portfolio. And that makes people feel really uncomfortable. And my now investors really appreciate that probably from me. Because I'm just really direct and honest with people. And
you're real. So at the beginning, we're so afraid of what investors are going to think about us if we don't say the right thing. And it all becomes about, well, what would this person like to hear? How would they like me to look? How would they like me to present? What kind of responses? And then you get to a stage where you think, actually, screw this. I have a great business. I have a phenomenal value proposition. And actually, the more people who say, how is it defensible? How is it defensible for other companies coming in? The more I think, actually, it's not if all of you people waste my time because some other jerk is going to come here and steal my damn idea beforehand.
Yeah.
So you get into a moment where actually, and this is, I really want everyone to take this piece of advice away from Chelsie. The minutes matter. They all matter. To see the amount of investors that you are going to have to see, to go through the hoops that you're going to have to go through, the time that you're going to have to go through is phenomenal. So the biggest thing you have to do is guard your own time, right?
Absolutely. Time management is so important. It's scheduling in-person meetings on specific days in specific locations so that you can actually get work done. Like for me, I'm really productive in the morning and I'm just very aware of how I operate. So I like to be alone in the morning and get my stuff done and then schedule meetings specific days, specific times. It's okay not to jump when an investor asks you to jump every single time. I would say the other part of that is really valuing the advice and the other instances that come up because things will come up that you don't necessarily anticipate, like going to an event and maybe you meet a friend instead of an investor, or maybe you meet a customer. I've met really interesting people on accident. I've been on a plane and sat next to who is now an investor, an employee, and a customer. And I don't talk to people on planes.
Yeah. I
just, for some reason, felt compelled and had a gut reaction to talk to the person sitting next to me on those 3 flights.
Because those investors can be anywhere. And normally at many times, and by the way, there are an incredible amount of phenomenal investors who invest in startups, and many of which Chelsie has right now, and we have all of the time. So for those investors, they get equally annoyed with the types of investors in inverted commas that we're talking about here today, who are the people who are either consultants, or they're just bored, or they just need a hobby, or they're going to invest in one startup every 5 or 10 years, but they just love meeting with people. And this entire process, you all need to prepare for it as startups, because it's just incredibly frustrating and incredibly difficult, and leads you to a place where you almost must start to doubt, and you have. And I say this, you're oversubscribed, you have a brilliant company, but there must be a stage during the looking for investment process where you even start to doubt yourself. You start to doubt the company. You think, shit, can all these people be right? Like, is there something about me? How do you deal with that?
I think the attitude that you have is so important. For me, I'm a very optimistic and determined and confident person in general. But yeah, there's a time, and now looking back, the plain examples that I gave earlier, I had come from amazing customer meetings during all 3 of those interactions, and I was on such a exciting, positive attitude high from having those great customer meetings. But I've also had a lot of investor meetings that I felt completely defeated, and I was just in a bad place during that. I was just sick of being told no, or that this is too early, you're not defensible, you're not the right CEO, all of these things. And there's two kinds of entrepreneurs. One is that you get beat down and beat down and beat down, and you just have to have that stamina. But there's also a time that you just have to wake up every morning. It's like, I'm from Minnesota originally, and it snows a lot, right?
Yeah.
So in the spring, when it's freezing and you're ice fishing and like your hair freezes when you go outside and you're sick of scraping snow off your windshield, there comes a time in the spring where you wake up every morning and you're like, oh, please, the sun is going to come out today. It's not going to snow today.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like. But for 3 months or 6 months or a year and a half, however long it takes you to fundraise, that's what it's like. And you have to accept that from the beginning. And it's really, really hard.
But how do you do that? How do you do that as an entrepreneur? Because what you're talking about is actually, it's not unique. It's not the exception. It's the rule. Generally, fundraising will take somewhere between 6 and 12 months, right? If you have a great product. Now, look, if you've just exited a company, you went to a nice school, you're related to the right people, obviously it's a different kettle of fish. But if you're a normal person who's got an exceptional idea and is ready to take it to market, 6 to 12 months. But how do you fight through? Especially because it's not like you've been the designated person to get investment. You're the CEO of the company. You're looking for investment. You're logistically putting together a team and a company all at the same time. And they can't see that you've just seen 5 or 6 people who are a bunch of jerks who've all said no for reasons that don't make any sense whatsoever. But you still have to come in and be a motivational force for that team the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. It is being authentic to the business, and that's being authentic to yourself and authentic to the business, and your team is counting on you. And that's what got me through a lot of times, was that there was so much pressure because I had brought together this epic team, like my dream team
is right there
of my entire life. Like I couldn't ask for a better team. And I know I have to support them in the right ways. And as a CEO, you can't always tell your team, no, I just got turned down 6 times this morning and it's 11 a.m. Like, does anyone have a cup of coffee? And
with some whiskey, please.
Yes, absolutely. But that it is really hard. But your job isn't to necessarily put on a fake face or lie about it. It is to get excited and to motivate and lead by example.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because at that stage, you're a warrior and you want to be surrounded by other warriors. So it's too hard to do this. A lot of people will say, and I see this advice, just do it on your own, force your way through. But like that's the way to a mental breakdown. You need to have strong people around you. And I think the beautiful thing, especially about your team, is not only do they stick by you, but everybody almost raised to the occasion. As you're growing in an early stage space, the majority of companies, the problem isn't the investors, it's that the team can't make it the distance. And as the CEO, it's too hard to do it all your own. But your team not only made it, but they raised the bar and
kicked ass.
They kicked ass. And then as soon as you said, you know what, screw the investors, we're going to go and we're going to bring in contract after contract after contract, and we're going to go after retailers. And you started closing contract after contract.
And big partnerships, yeah.
Huge. I mean, and you did that, and then you said this to your team without the investment, without anything in place, and they blindly said, not only will we do it, tell us how to do it. I remember looking at your sales plan. It was like looking at Wolf of Wall Street. And they went in and then nailed all these retailers, and then everything changed. Before we talk about the success that then came from it, just talk a little bit about how you grew, because I think that part for me was and is pivotal for you and for all other entrepreneurs, is to move away from the judgment and the investors hypothesizing whether you're going to be successful or not, and saying, screw all of you, I'm going to go and make this a success.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about that.
Absolutely. So I went through 2 weeks, or maybe even a month, was it? When I was just feeling so defeated every day. In fact, I think a couple investors called me out on not being so chipper.
You were done, and you were done in a really good way. You were just, and it's a question of changing the strategy. If the strategy's not working, you can keep on hitting your head off the water. You can say, hang on, is there something we can do to change it? And so many investors, listen, forget you being pissed off. I was pissed off. How many conversations did we have every evening on what the hell, like what have we got to do to break through?
Yeah, it was a big moment. I think that one day someone said, you'll never get this company as a partner. You'll never get this many drivers. You'll never get this retailer. And going back to the two types of entrepreneurs, I think you get beat down and beat down and beat down, or you look at someone and you just are compelled and you get this fire inside of you that is, oh, you don't think so? Watch me.
Yeah.
and that was
it's like,
it.
I am so glad you said that.
Yes.
Because now I'm going to do it.
And then we did it in a month. I think it was less than a month before we.
No, you would I'd get the text through, hey, just close another one, just close another one. I'm thinking, you are closing these companies without even a product. Like it was the wizard behind the curtain. Now you had the ability to provide the APIs, but you were selling it before even having that in place. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was. We were going to hit a breaking point and run out of money, and I was sick of people telling me I couldn't do it. And then I think one day I woke up and said, why am I wasting so much time with investors? I could have sold my way out of this a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that's what I would have told myself a year and a half ago, is to just go do it and not listen.
Right from the get-go.
Right from the get-go. Just go do it. And, then we would have been in a better place with customers. We would have had more traction, which is also an important piece when meeting with an investor. I think initially entrepreneurs take any meeting that they can get with any investor because it might be the prince. It might be the prince. And I did the same thing. But then I learned to ask things like, what's an example of one of your favorite investments that you've made and why? And then you learn about the person. If they invested in a dog company or a healthcare company, you really learn more about the actual person and you can relate to them because we're all human. So I think asking when the most recent investment that they made, because you'll weed out a lot of them, and asking what kinds of verticals, asking what the earliest company that they've ever invested in is also really important, because the amount of investors I said, we're too early for you. Oh, you require 100,000 in MRR. We're definitely not there.
Yeah.
I don't have a second to talk to anyone that isn't ready to invest in our stage.
Yeah, but it's cool because now that we know that, we'll come back to you in 6 months' time when we are at that stage. And I remember when that whole belief came in, because you had done exactly what you said you were going to do, and you did it in record time. It wasn't like it took 6 or 9 months to get these sales in. You were closing them I remember at the end of the first week, you said, we haven't closed anything this week. I'm going, Chelsie, it's only been 4 days. Like, seriously. And then like on day 5, I saw this huge sales manuscript, which was put out there on exactly how you were going to go through a 5-stage point to selling stuff. And then week 2 sales, week 3 sales, week 4 sales. And then I'll always remember when you pitched at the Harvard Business Angels and you came in And there was a belief, there was a difference in belief, and it was just, we'll talk about your investors in a second, but it was so beautiful how you led the pitch. Before, your pitch would have been like anyone else's. It would have been, here's a problem, here's a solution. The problem in the market is people want stuff on demand and they want to have it straight away, but they're not able to get it because you normally have to wait 24 hours. We have an e-commerce solution that allows brands to be able to provide product within an hour. Like, it was always a really nice pitch. But this particular pitch, you came in and you said, look, normally I would come in here and tell you all about our product, all about the fact that I'm one of the top brand people in the world, that I can provide, that I have a product which is phenomenal, can really help. But I just want to lead this by telling you that one of the top investors in the United States has just led an investment on us. We have 5 other investments coming through. Our expectation is that our round will be closed within the next 2 weeks. And if any of you investors in here would like to get involved in our round, then you probably have about 10 days to do your due diligence. Okay, so my name is Chelsie. My company is Shipsi. And here's the problem that we're solving. I remember everybody, and of course everybody in the room is a man, except for the one token woman in the room, and everybody else is
amazing,
a guy.
by the way.
Yeah, she's great, right? But everybody's a guy.
Yeah.
And I just remember them all, just the postures and how everything changed. And everybody just sits back in their chair and like, okay. And then you had everybody's attention. Everybody was captivated in that room. And then when you went outside and I was in there listening to it, you were put as by far the best startup that they had seen for a long time. And then literally you closed your round almost immediately. So can we move fast forward to how you got that first investor? Because you got her all on your own. And then what happened afterwards, and also what you did to everyone. Because it wasn't just you. Like, you manifested in me. We went out one night to a bar and we double teamed this guy who was an awesome, incredible.
But I didn't want to go out that night.
You didn't want to go out, but he was like the best investor, the nicest investor you have. And we just hit him from both sides because I believed even more than you. And I'm like, if you were a real man, you'd invest in this company, right? So,
that entire process, I would say you need a wingman throughout the process as well. You need like 5 wingmen to force you to go out when you don't want to, whether you meet a friend or an investor at an event. But that night was so much fun because we were already pretty close.
yeah.
And I think I just remember
We never met him before.
We had never met him before. And I remember overhearing something someone was talking about. You're like, so how's your summer? And they said, oh, good, we're going to Disneyland. And I think that you had said something like, you want to go to Disneyland even more? Have you met Shipsi? But it is having that team around you to build you up as well when you don't think that you can go on one other investor meeting. Or I think at that point, I was so excited about all the partnerships that I didn't want to meet with investors anymore.
Yeah.
I was so done meeting with investors and I was having so much fun working on the actual business. I wasn't interested in meeting any more investors until you drug me out. So I think that's also really important.
You got to go where you got to go all the time. Never stop. Tell us about your first investor. How did you do it? This was all you. And all her, for example. Like she raised, she was always an amazing investor for me and like a great person. I heard a lot about her. But now that she has associated herself with you, at the time that she associated herself with you, and the impact that she had on all these other investors almost immediately has moved her up through the roof in my estimations. But talk a little bit about that.
So around the same time that we started really working on the business development and these partnerships and sales, even before we had a live product, I needed to get creative on the investors that we were going to, and going back to the point of, yes, just go to the event, just go meet with everyone that you possibly can. I went to one event in particular, and three different women came up to me and said, what do you do? And we were just making small talk. And I found out that all 3 of those women were in the portfolio of my first real investor.
Yeah.
And I found a way to get to her and said, your companies are trying to be my customer, but I can't afford the development.
Beautiful.
And it was just being really authentic. I wasn't fake. It was one of the most real investor conversations. I didn't even try and hide the fact that I talked to, so many investors and that no one really believed in me. I just went to her and said, look, here's your portfolio companies that want to be my customer. I can't afford it. I've gotten around it through getting basically gift certificates for other technology companies so that we can do integrations. But I really love their stuff, and I can't afford to get them as a customer. I'd love to sit down and talk to you about what I do.
And what happened?
It was interesting timing because our first meeting was scheduled, and I think it took me maybe 3 months to get to her, but I just basically found like everyone that I possibly could in the circle around her. And our first meeting was scheduled in person. I think it was somewhere in Brentwood, and I was so excited, counting down the days because I had a good gut feeling about it. And
you'd also ticked all the boxes. You knew she invested in female founders. You knew that the products that she actually wanted to be promoted and do really well were products that actually would do better by being on your platform as well. And she did early stage. So everything you talked about earlier on in this podcast were all of the boxes that you were now ticking yourself. So great. What happened?
I went and I was so excited. I remember the day before getting ready, thinking about what I was going to wear. It was like my big show. And I hadn't even talked to her on the phone, I don't think. It was very premature. But she ended up delivering her baby the day that we were supposed to meet.
Oh, no. I mean, yes.
So, I
mean, no.
I know. So I can't really do anything about that. I mean, a small human.
Did she use Shipsi?
I mean, now she does. Lots of baby products come in handy. So I thought, oh, damn it. And it was like, I think a month early, something like that. There's no way. So I thought that that might either be a really good sign or a really bad sign. And I think that what ended up getting the actual meeting with her is someone from my team. This is how great my team is, right?
Yeah.
Someone from my team said, hey, reminder, send her a baby gift. Did you send her a baby gift yet? Oh. And I said, no, I'll do it next week. Oh. No, I'll do it next week.
Oh, come
no,
on.
I'll do it next week.
This is so good.
So my way to get to her, like one of her friends, who's actually an advisor for us now and amazing, I said, can I have her, are you comfortable giving me her home address or her work address? We'd like to send her a baby gift.
Yeah.
And
oh, you're a genius.
A day later, we got, I think that I actually don't even think I got her baby gift.
Yeah.
I should probably send that. But that was something that we had always like talked about of being able to send a baby gift via Shipsi. And now we can actually do it because we have a customer that does baby stuff.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then what? She then arranged the appointment with you. And then how was the meeting? How did you approach it?
It was very different than any other investor meeting.
Why?
So it was a pitch that I went in for. So I'd never met her in person. And I had a 15-minute slot, I think, at her office. And it was a formal pitch.
Which is interesting. She was giving you a 15-minute slot. Like the person who is the most serious investor in the previous 200 investors or 150 you'd gone through is giving you a 15-minute slot, while most of the ones who were a total waste of time would have happily given you a 2-hour slot. Okay, just saying.
Yeah,
keep going.
Absolutely. So I went in to go do my pitch, and I got an email, I think the night before, that said, what would you like your theme song to be? And I think it took me a while to think about it. So I think that I sent whatever was playing on my Sonos at the time, which was "You Make My Dreams Come True."
That's really corny. Hang on a sec, I just need to vomit.
I know. And I think I used some cheesy line of like, "I'm here to make your shopping dreams come true," or something. But it was so different than any other formal pitch that I had given, because I got maybe 3 minutes into it and I'd been practicing. And then she stopped me and she just said, I don't understand this part. Can you go back? And in my head, I was ready for my next slide and my next slide and my next slide. So the fact that she interrupted, and I was almost taken back, because not very many investors will do that to you. They'll just let you go do your song and dance and that's it. But she genuinely cared and wanted to understand it. And the rest of the 15-minute slot that I had, we just had a conversation about her portfolio companies and how exciting it would be for them to use it. Yeah. After I dove into the process and some of the technology of it. But I respected her so much more that she actually stopped me and said, hang on, I don't get it. Can you go back? Because That's such a part of the entrepreneur journey. And when investors ask me today if I know or ask me a question and I don't know the answer, it's okay not to know the answer and not to pretend like you do.
Yeah.
It's really important not only to be authentic, but also to be honest and genuine. And you don't have to have all of the answers. I remember in that meeting when she asked me a couple questions and I didn't know the answer. I said, I'm not sure. We haven't got to that point yet. Or I was in another big investor presentation in New York a few months ago, and someone said, how much revenue you're going to do this year? And I think my response was something like, well, in our model, in the model that we have, we're going to do $500,000. I can also give you my 5-year wages model that I have built out, but both are going to be bullshit. My question to you is, how many companies do you see at our stage where those numbers are actually accurate?
Correct.
I would rather not lie about it or pretend something I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to impress them.
You can't win. It's hard.
Yeah.
So, and then how long did it take her? How long before you knew she was going to invest?
A week?
Yeah, beautiful.
Something like that.
And then the most, I don't want to go through individual people's names because I know we're still tying things up at the end. But then everything I heard from that point onwards was everything that would encourage an entrepreneur to actually be successful in the total raise. Like everything from the lead all the way through to the board seats, all the way through to the support. Everything was about making sure you could bring the other investors on. So now you have your lead, you have your one coming in first. It's a couple of $100,000. It's from one of the top venture capitalists in the United States. What happened then? After like a drought. This is like, as an Irish guy, we're going through the famine here, and suddenly somebody has walked up. As an Irish guy and an Irish girl. This is the famine. And somebody just walked up with a big bucket of potatoes. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So what happened? How long until... Because you're trying to close at that stage 1.5?
Yes.
So what happened?
So we were absolutely ecstatic.
I already know the answer. This
I know,
is so cool.
I know. And then I met someone else. I met another prince. And I was pleasantly surprised.
Another female prince.
Another
right?
female prince. I didn't think that my after kissing so many frogs, I was very surprised that my princes were ladies.
Yeah,
I have great lady princes. I met someone else and instantly I remember exactly where I was the first conversation that we had, and when the light bulb went off in her head, and again, it was one of the most real conversations that I've ever had about the business. And at this point, I was probably having this positive attitude and very optimistic. So I probably wasn't, kind of in that dark entrepreneur place after you get turned down. I was probably in a more optimistic mindset, which probably helped. And their process was a little bit longer and more complicated because they're a very, very large firm.
VC, right? Yeah.
And I was pretty transparent with both of them about each other, but didn't really know what this next prince was going to come with.
Yeah.
And the second prince, they like to lead. They only like to lead. That is just what they do. And their check sizes are generally minimum 3 times more than my first prince.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what to do necessarily. So I told each of them about each other and said, here's where we're at. And the process took a little bit longer. And then my second prince came in and said, we want to lead. And I said, whoa, great, right? It's like 3 times, it's almost half our round. I'm so excited. I call my co-founder. And I think even before I called him, or immediately after, I text my first prince and said, can I come to your office today, but after 4:00? Are you around? Like, I would really, really like to see you. And I remember that day being one of the most nerve-wracking days because I had my prince and now I had to tell her I have a new prince.
I know.
I was really torn up about it. I was excited about it, but I wanted to make sure that it was something that she was comfortable with, because after no one believed in me, she really did.
Yeah.
And so I sat down, and both of us are incredibly direct anyway. I think even before I sat in my chair, I said, I have a prince. They want to lead. What do we do?
Beautiful.
And I think that it was getting her, not only getting her blessing on it, but she was thrilled. She was ecstatic. It wasn't offending, but I didn't go in and say, hey, I just found this new prince. You're old meat to me. And so
she became your team, and you and her worked out the solution together. And of course, because she's so big and so strong, for her it was so great, because with the follow-on or the lead or whatever you're going to call it, it meant, and that's the key for VCs and for angels, for anybody listening, is they all want lots more people to invest in the round. The more oversubscribed it is, that means the more hot it is. The more hot it is, the easier it's going to be for a Series A. The quicker you get to Series A, the quicker the company goes up to a 10 times valuation. And I think after, we then had a third prince, and the third prince ended up a little bit problematic, which I really enjoyed, because you were able to direct some of the terms now, because now you have the two people you really wanted to be with. You had somebody who was not that interested before, who suddenly became very interested because now you're the most popular girl in school, and that person then came in and wanted to engage, which is wonderful. But you were strong enough to be able to dictate the terms, which is beautiful.
It's hard.
It's beautiful because you believed. And I truly believe, like, having been so close to you on this journey and just watching everything you've done all the way through, is I truly believe it was from the day you decided to start selling that your belief became not just contagious, but it created this FOMO. And I always used to say, I believe FOMO is absolutely imperative for an investor to think. You corrected me with something I now use all the time.
Do you?
All the time, but I pretend it's mine.
That's okay. You can take the credit. I don't need the credit.
I'm only just telling a couple of people listening here, but yeah, I totally pretend it's mine, which is that you don't just require FOMO, you require a compelling event to create FOMO. And then with a compelling event and FOMO, you're going to get all the investors that you want. And of everything else that I've ever heard from you, if I've ever heard from anybody else, is the thing that stuck with me the most. The only difference is, I think you probably believe the compelling event was your first investor coming in. I believe your compelling event was the day that you said, F all of you, I'm going to build a great business. And you know what? If you provide the money, great. And if you don't provide the money, we have the best product and the best team. And we have been focused for far too long in pleasing a bunch of people who don't want to be pleased.
Big mistake.
Big mistake! Huge!
You work on commission, right?
Pretty Woman reference, okay? For all of you out there, we spent a lot of time getting to this one point. And then you had how many investors in total?
15. We had to turn quite a few away.
We had to turn them away.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing was, and I'll tell you something, right? Chelsie did 80% of this stuff on her own. I always just remember the one time I'm here with a group of provisors and I scolded them like little children, just saying to them, you bunch of fools. I gave you the greatest company in the world. You didn't invest when she needed it. And now she's oversubscribed and none of you have got a chance and you don't even deserve it. And everybody looked at me and they're like, what the hell is this Irish guy saying? And then how quickly was money wired to you?
Wasn't it that same
day?
Same day? I think it was that afternoon.
By an investor, which is not your biggest investor, but the fact that a provider of services could want to get involved and helped at a time that you really needed was vital, right?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that.
It was really vital. Chelsie, like, we need some money now, actually. When I say now, maybe today would be really helpful. I'm like, okay, we got this.
I was starving, living on the street.
Credit cards have been maxed out.
Woman.
Yeah, because you were making it happen. So I want to conclude everything here, and I hope, look, the story that you hear is an amazing story because it's a story of pure success. It's not just about raising money, because raising money is not the success. It's about raising money because of the belief that people have in you and because of the traction that you're driving in the business and the product you have. Shipsi, for me, is not a doubt in my mind. And fast forward this 5 years, this is $1 billion company. And for the investors who've got involved in it today, they've done very well. My disclaimers are probably somewhere else, but I truly believe that it's an awesome company being led by an incredible entrepreneur. And what you see from this whole story is that nothing's easy. It's not easy for any entrepreneur. Forget the stories you hear about it being easy. Forget about people saying, yeah, there's lots of people with money. Money is like water. Forget all of that. This is the hardest grind you will ever go through in your whole life. But once you get to the end of it, it's worth it, right?
Yeah. And thank you. You need that support system. You do. And every piece of the puzzle throughout that process and that journey, no matter how difficult it is, physically, mentally, or emotionally, you need that. You need every single puzzle piece and everyone that's involved. So thank you for everything.
Are you kidding me? I'm sitting here thinking, the dojo have an awesome company in the dojo. This is the greatest thing in the whole world. I'm going to ride on Chelsea's wave for years. I'm going to be like, yeah, I knew her.
And then no one would invest in us for a while.
Hey, we prayed together, okay?
Yeah, we did.
Almost cried together, which is great. What's the last piece of advice that you'd give to everyone? Maybe some bits that I've left out, some little tidbits, some things that they can take. If they've just got there, of the most important things that they should take away from this interview?
I would say really continue to be authentic to yourself and stick with your gut. Just because someone tells you to go north or south, don't listen to everyone and rely on your team. Build a great team around you and stay humble. That was a lot of things, but I think really being authentic, sticking to your gut. And when someone tells me that you can't do it, go prove them wrong.
Yeah, and that's the thing that sticks to me with you. It's
Watch
the fact
me.
that
Yeah.
it's the fact that the second you realize you had to go out and make it happen, you made it happen by 4, and then everybody who'd seen it before it saw that, so nothing was a wasted time. Okay, listen, I say this at the end of the interview. Chelsie Lee is a great, great friend of mine, someone who I'm really proud to have as part of Expert Dojo, someone who I admire as an entrepreneur, and for all of you out there who are striving and who are thinking, I want to build a billion-dollar company, she and Shipsi are the ones that you should be following. And by the way, for any of the rest of you who've got brands, you've got products, you're shipping it all over the place, and you're thinking to yourself in this podcast, I didn't actually hear anything about investment. The only thing I heard was, can she really get stuff delivered within 1 hour? Yes, she can. So make sure you go out there, you check her out on shipsi.com, which is shipsi.com. And Chelsie Lee, and anybody who is ever looking for advice, especially young female entrepreneurs who are looking to break through in this almost impossible world, anyone can reach out to you where?
Absolutely, yeah. My LinkedIn has my direct contact info on it, so message me on LinkedIn or email me. I think my cell phone number is probably on there as well. So yeah, feel free to reach out anytime and go prove everyone wrong. Everyone who tells you can't, go shove it in their face.
And that's where we should finish.
Okay.
That's a wrap.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. If you know any other entrepreneur equally ambitious as you, then share this podcast by paying it forward to other entrepreneurs who are building your own army. Now, as always, our website, expertdojo.com, is packed with information to help you grow your business, find investment, and train for victory. We also walk our talk and invest in startups every year in our accelerator here in Silicon Beach. You can always reach out to me at brian@expertdojo.com, and I look forward to being back here again at our regular time next Tuesday, 10 a.m. with another of the world's top investors, helping you win the war against startup failure.